When the internet began, bulletin board services, or BBS, became the first online communities of the so-called information superhighway. Using their phone lines, people logged in from all over America to talk about sports, games, movies, and on one BBS in particular, share their ghost stories. Over time, those communities all went dark, except for one lone server that continues to operate somewhere in an unknown part of Pennsylvania's Rust Belt. A relic of the 1990s, veiled in mystery, it is a digital archive of humanity's strangest encounters with the unknown, as told by the people who experienced them. My name is Brandon Schexnayder, and you are listening to Fear Daily.
Subject, Run, Rabbit. User, FallSpectre8. Posted, October 27th, 1998.
He's watching me right now. I can see him across the street in front of Rite Aid. He looks like any other little kid wearing a red jacket and blue jeans. If someone were to notice him, they might think he's waiting for his parents inside or meeting a friend. Come to think of it, on that last count, they'd be right. He is waiting for a friend, just not in the way they think. His name is Ronnie, and he's been dead for 15 years. The friend he's waiting for is me. Ronnie was 13 when I pushed him into traffic on the Long Island Expressway in Queens. I was only 14 myself. We were dumbass kids doing dumbass shit. My mom worked in the rental office of LaFrac City, so we lived there in a subsidized apartment. LaFrac is a huge housing project in Corona, 15,000 people living in 20 buildings between 57th Avenue and the Expressway. You ever read those Judge Dredd comic books? LaFrac, with its huge concrete towers named after cities and countries, looks like it's straight out of Mega City 1. Dystopian, I mean. Living there in the 70s and 80s felt dystopian, too. A lot of crime, murder, assault, drugs. Good people live there, still do, and it's a big enough place you might never see the worst of it. But you could also find yourself in the wrong place at the wrong time. When that happened, all bets were off. Mom and I lived in the Singapore building. Back then, it was mostly for old folks. We got in because of Mom's job. In the summer, the neighborhood association would put on fish fries, family days, and basketball tournaments to bring everyone together. It was smart. If people feel connected to their neighborhood, they're going to care more about protecting it. If I close my eyes, I can still smell the hot oil and batter, hear the bounce of the basketball up and down the court. I met Ronnie during one of those summer fish fries. He was smaller than me and could run like the wind. He was also a smartass, and that way little guys can be when they don't think anyone will ever hit them. To his credit, no one ever did, and boy, could he run his mouth. One of his favorite things to do was lip off the older boys, then beat it. Of course, if I was with him, I'd have to run too, because unlike Ronnie, they were probably going to beat my ass if they caught me. The crazy little bastard even liked to play chicken with God. He knew how to get through the roof access door in the Mexico building and would stand on the edge, inching himself forward to see how far he could go before backing out. If life with Ronnie was the Olympics, those were the summer games. The winter games were all about Run Rabbit. Run Rabbit was hands down the dumbest thing I've ever agreed to. The Long Island Expressway runs along the southern edge of LaFrac, and day or night, it's always busy. Anyone who goes out on the 15-lane highway instead of using the 99th Street overpass would have to be some kind of idiot or a kid on a dare. That's what Run Rabbit was. We'd sneak out at night and take turns daring each other to run across the expressway. The medians were safe, and the less time you spent in safe, the more points you got, something like that. It was a way to show how tough you were, how much risk you were willing to take. Playing it in the winter with all the ice on the ground, I sometimes wonder how it went on as long as it did. Just like with everything else, Ronnie had to be the guy who went the furthest, spent the least amount of time in safe. He was like Frogger, bouncing in and out of traffic, drivers laying on their horns, shouting at him out their windows. He didn't give two shits. He'd laugh and keep running, dodging until he made it the full 15 all the way across to Park City on the other side. I wasn't like him. I was careless, sure, what kid isn't, but not like Ronnie. I knew that the more time I spent on medians gripping that concrete, the less time I'd be out there with cars and trucks whizzing by me, spraying slush in my face. I never even came close to the Park City side, a fact Ronnie loved to rag on me about. One night, he pushed too far. It was a few days before Christmas. I think about it now, my own kids being out at night in weather like that, let alone doing something as stupid as playing Run Rabbit, and it turns my stomach. The expressway was a soup, sloppy snow on top of a bed of black ice. Ronnie and I were standing under the overpass, trying to stay out of it, but we may as well not have bothered because those big, fat flakes were practically blowing sideways. Ronnie went out there anyways, his red jacket flapping, car skidding as they tried to avoid him. I couldn't watch, so I closed my eyes. Even over the rush of traffic, you could hear his crazy ass laughing. He did the full 15 that night because, of course he did. Once he'd come back via the overpass, he was practically vibrating. He was deep in the rush, perfectly alive in a way I've never seen anyone since, and man, was he cocky. It was supposed to be my turn, but I couldn't do it. My body would not move in that direction. It was as if there was an invisible wall between me and the road. Ronnie wasn't having it. He got right up in my face, something he'd never done before. Sure, he'd razz me or tease me for being chicken, just not like this. His eyes were big and bright, like a preacher when he gets on a roll, inches from my face. He would not stop talking shit, calling me a coward and a pussy. Then he pushed me. I don't like being touched, and he knew that. It's probably why he knew it would work. He pushed and pushed, the mean things he was saying mixing in with the white noise of 100 cars roaring through calf-high snow. I snapped. I pushed him back too hard. The thing I remember most is how surprised he looked. All the aggression was gone out of his face, and he was my friend again, windmilling backwards onto the busy highway. The car that hit him didn't have time to brake. Instead, it plowed into him full speed, and Ronnie's broken body smashed the windshield before ragdolling up and over the roof. The paramedics said he would have been dead after the first impact and was spared having to see the road rush up at his face. The heavy thud of him meeting the asphalt is something I still hear in my nightmares. Even if there had been someone around to catch me pushing Ronnie, it was so dark below that underpass, I doubt they'd have seen anything. It was all written off as a kid's game gone wrong. Suppose it was. He first appeared to me at the funeral. As the small casket was lowered into the ground, I saw Ronnie standing there next to his mother. He was dressed exactly the way he'd been that night, red jacket, blue jeans. For a brief, beautiful second, I thought it had all been a mistake. He couldn't be in the casket. He was right there. But then, there was the look on his face. Even when Ronnie was mad at me or was razzing me, he never looked like this. Fury wrapped his face into a mask, his eyes bored straight into me, magnifying the guilt already sitting like stones on my chest. I thought I'd be crushed under the weight. Eventually, my mom got a better job, allowing us to move out of Lafrac. Ronnie moved with us, with me, and on every important day, college orientation, my first date with Marcy, who'd become my wife, our wedding day, even the birth of our daughter, he was there watching. They were all things he'd been denied. Maybe I could lie to myself, say that he was there to experience those precious moments with me, but the hatred in his eyes told another story. He's waiting for me. I know that in my heart. An innocent mistake is still a mistake, and Ronnie won't let me escape it, in this life or the next.
Subject, the killer killer. User, Santa Sniper. Posted, December 25th, 1998.
What movies like Seven get wrong about serial killers is that, by and large, they're not calculating super geniuses enacting some master plan. What they are gross little opportunistic dorks, freaks of the human psyche. We blow them up into something larger than life because they scare us, and who wants to believe that the boogeyman hiding in their closet is really just some sweaty palm jerk-off who gets a stiffy when he thinks about his mom? How do I know this? I've met dozens of serial killers, 12 every year for the last 10 years, at least the ones I've known about. To a man, and all of them have been men so far, they're sad, stinky, graceless losers who've bought their own hype and become convinced they were untouchable. When I finally end their miserable lives, the look of complete and total surprise on their faces is almost reward enough for me to keep doing this work without getting paid. Almost. Even if a killer of killers has to buy groceries. Exactly how I became a killer is a story for another time. All you need to know is that every winter, my doorbell rings. When I open up, there's always a single 3-foot by 3-foot cardboard box wrapped in green and white paper with a red bow on top. I'm a sucker for Christmas, so even though it's only me here in the house, I put up a tree. Really go for it. Garland, tinsel, ornaments, the whole bit. I bring that box inside and, same as I have since the first time, open it up on the floor of my living room in the glow of my little holiday sanctuary. Inside, there are always 12 fat manila envelopes, a handwritten note, and $500,000 in shrink-wrapped bundles of cash, tens, 50s, and hundreds. The bundles are unmarked and non-sequential, not that I worry about this being a sting. 10 years is a long time to set a snare. The envelopes are stamped with months, December through to November, and the note says, without fail, Merry Christmas and Happy Hunting, SC, ho ho ho. Am I really being paid by Santa Claus to hunt down murderous scumbags? It's a nice thought. Who wouldn't want to be one of Santa's elves? The answer is, I don't have any idea. But whether it's Santa Claus, Sean Connery, or Sheryl Crow, they must have one hell of an intelligence apparatus, and each stamped envelope is detailed information on a different active serial killer operating across the continental USA. Either Alaska and Hawaii haven't had serial killers in the last 10 years, or there's someone else doing the job who specializes in those areas. God bless them if they are. I hate the cold and pineapples. I used to open all the envelopes at once, like a little kid. Now that I'm a little older and wiser, I treat them like a year-long advent calendar and only let myself open the first one. This year, I unlooped the December envelope string and pulled out a sheaf of papers, photographs, police reports, detailed notes about my killer of the month. This one was a real putz. Lawrence Yost, a bully and killer of women who had started his career by knocking out an old man in a grocery store. Despite being charged with second-degree assault, he hadn't been charged. How the hell had that happened? I turned the page and found my answer. He had a googie. Of course he did. The lamest ones always have a googie. Let me explain. When I was a kid, my best friend Lloyd had an imaginary friend named Googie. Lloyd swore up and down that Googie was real, a 4-foot-tall hairy man with sharp teeth who looked out for Lloyd when his human buddies weren't around, keeping him safe from his slap-happy piece of shit stepdad. It seemed to make him feel safe, so none of us opined on how weird it was for a 12-year-old boy to still have an imaginary friend. One hot summer night, someone broke into the house and slashed stepdad's throat with a ragged blade, taking a carton of smokes and a handle of Jimmy Beam with him on the way out. A couple weeks later, I saw Lloyd sitting out back of the motel where he and his mom had moved while the house was being cleaned up for sale. He was in a plastic lawn chair, talking amiably while the hairy little man sitting next to him puffed away on a cigarette. Googie wasn't imaginary after all. I never told anyone, of course, but it shifted my perspective on the world and made me realize it was a lot bigger than I ever suspected. After discovering that some of the serial killers in my envelopes had a Googie of their own, a being from another world enabling or encouraging them, I tracked down Lloyd. To my relief, he was living a full, happy life, free of violence, and I took from this that not all these beings were evil, which was encouraging. When you spend most of your time poking around in the world's dumpster, you start thinking everything is trash. Speaking of trash, Lawrence Yost's googie was the lowest kind, a non-physical influence centered around a single area of power. In this case, a quarry in the Midwest. I dropped the envelope on my floor in annoyance. I was gonna get cold after all. 24 hours later, I was on a flight.
Fear Daily is an independent podcast hosted by Brandon Schexnayder and written by Brennan Storr, with Joanna Smith serving as the consulting editor, audio production by Rachel Boyd, and sound design by Southern Gothic Media. This podcast is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are either products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or to real events or locations, is entirely coincidental. Ad-free versions of Fear Daily are available now on your favorite podcast apps. For more information, visit feardaily.com. But move fast, before the server goes offline.